Where there's smoke, a report finds the Hazelwood mine fire probably did cost lives.
We can't get them back, but we can make a stand for them, make their deaths count for something.
Good evening, Ian Henderson with ABC News. A report on the Hazelwood coal mine fire has found it probably did contribute to an increase in the number of deaths around the region at the time. The report tabled in State Parliament today is also scathing of the Health Department's failure to address community concerns when the fire broke out. Kirsten Vaness reports.
For 45 days, residents of Morwell and the Latrobe Valley lived in acrid smoke from the Hazelwood coal mine. Kiri-Anne Clissold blames the smoke for her husband's sudden death from a brain aneurysm 4 months later.
I can't get my husband back, obviously, and other people who died of aneurysms and other assorted health issues, we can't get them back. But we can make a stand for them, make their deaths count for something.
From the beginning, locals feared the smoke could be lethal.
Can you rule out that people haven't died because of air pollution in this area?
Well, I can. There have not been any deaths and no indication of such.
But continued campaigning and locals' own research led to the mine fire inquiry being reopened.
It would have been hidden under the carpet and we would not have heard anything else of it.
The inquiry has found that it's likely there had been an increase in deaths in the Latrobe Valley after the fire started in February and over the months until June.
Previous government's refusal to actually have this issue considered in the first mine fire inquiry, at best is negligent, I think, and at worst was by design.
The report singles out former Chief Health Officer Dr Rosemary Lester for criticism. But Dr Lester denies trying to influence the department's research into potential links between recent deaths and the smoke.
What I requested were minor editorial changes only, like labels on tables. I totally reject, and there is no evidence that I attempted to influence that report.
The inquiry will next examine the health of Latrobe residents with a report due in February. Kirsten Vaness, ABC News.
Spike in Latrobe Valley deaths linked to the Hazelwood mine fire. Residents impacted by the Hazelwood coal mine fire could pursue legal action after an investigation found the blaze was likely to have caused a spike in deaths around the Latrobe Valley. As Andrew Nelson tells us, it's been attributed to at least 11 fatalities.
A 45-day fire, but the effects of last year's monster blaze at Hazelwood coal mine continue to be felt. Morwell and surrounding Latrobe Valley towns were blanketed in ash and smoke. Residents dealt the toxic consequences.
It was terrible. It was thick and stuck to your skin, stuck to your nose, nasal hairs and everywhere. You couldn't get away from it.
A new report into the blaze has concluded what residents had already believed. It's likely there was an increase in deaths in the Latrobe Valley in 2014 and that the Hazelwood fire contributed to some of that increase. Kiri-Anne Clissold's husband Craig McCormack died of an aneurysm last September. She's convinced his death was caused by exposure to unsafe levels of air pollution.
It's too late for him, but it's not too late for the other people with high morbidity and horrible sicknesses that are going to be terminal.
The report singled out the former Chief Health Officer and Health Department, describing them as defensive at a time residents shared real health concerns.
These deaths could have been prevented by early action taken in the health aspect.
The deaths are just the tip of the iceberg of what actually occurred to the health of the people.
The inquiry recommended the government review air monitoring protocols, improve community engagement, more transparency in delivering health information and better investigative strategies. While this report has offered some closure to residents affected by the Hazelwood fire, the saga is far from over. Some will explore their options for legal action, while others remain concerned about the long-term health impacts.
They are finally accessing answers. On the other hand, the consequences and the results of this report are very damning.
The inquiry's next set of findings will be handed down next year. Andrew Nelson, 9 News.
This is Win News.
Tonight, the Hazelwood fire found to have contributed to an increase in deaths. Concerns over Australia's first magnesium plant at Morwell. And Gippsland cleans up after wild storms. Good evening, I'm Bruce Roberts. Also tonight, the last of Victoria's water-bombing aircraft in place for the bushfire season. Community group Voices of the Valley says it's a bittersweet day after the Hazelwood mine fire inquiry found the disaster likely contributed to an increase in deaths in 2014. The group says today's report shows the community has been let down by the mine's owner and the health department.
A 15-month fight for the truth today finally bore fruit. Voices of the Valley lobbied the government to investigate whether the Hazelwood mine fire contributed to a subsequent increase in deaths after the issue was left out of the initial inquiry. The report was tabled in Parliament today.
There are some very damning and disturbing findings.
At the same time, it's a sad day because people did die through this fire and it could have possibly been prevented, these deaths.
The inquiry's report concluded there was likely an increase in deaths in the Latrobe Valley between February and June 2014 compared to the same period in the previous 2 years, and the Hazelwood mine fire likely contributed to an increase in deaths in 2014, although precisely how many couldn't be determined.
It would have been hidden under the carpet and we would not have heard anything else of it. Our team has put a lot of work into finding out the truth.
The previous government's refusal to actually have this issue considered in the first mine fire inquiry, at best is negligent, I think, and at worst was by design.
Kerry-Ann Clissold lost her husband, aged 48, to an aneurysm just 4 months after the fire. She says the least she can hope for is an apology from the mine's owner, politicians and most importantly the health department.
If we were told the truth to start with, I don't think there would have been one person left in that town. Not one person left.
The inquiry board was equally critical of the health department, not only criticising internal procedures, but labelling fact sheets incomplete, misleading and unbalanced.
What exacerbates it is we now know that much of the information that was being given was not accurate and wasn't accessible.
While acknowledging the report, mine owner GDF Sewers Australian Energy insists there's absolute no proof for these findings, adding because of the imprecise nature of the analysis, it's not possible to attribute any specific death to the mine fire. Environment Justice Australia is hopeful the report will be the launching pad for further inquiries by other regulatory bodies.
The EPA can take action, the WorkSafe can also take action.
Whatever future action is taken, residents view today as a major victory in a fight that has taken a personal toll on so many.
He's my best friend. So, I can't bring him back, but we can make his death count.
Matthew Russell, Win News.
The Hazelwood mine inquiry continued today into terms of reference 8 and 9, concentrating on mine rehabilitation. A panel comprising water experts from the department, Gippsland Water and Southern Rural Water, was questioned on a number of issues, including the Gippsland Region's Sustainable Water Strategy. Council Assisting Ruth Shan read from the 2011 document questioning the department's Sharon Davis about a proposal to transform the mines into artificial lakes.
However, this is not considered to be an entirely viable option any longer because there is insufficient water to fill most of the mines, end quote. Is that one which DELP agrees with?
Yes.
The hearings will continue until Tuesday. Community groups have voiced their environmental and economic concerns over the building of Australia's first magnesium plant at Morwell. At a meeting last night, questions were raised regarding the plant's excess waste and the employment of overseas workers.
Next year, Latrobe Magnesium will start building a plant that will use waste fly ash from Latrobe Valley mines. It's aimed to produce up to 40,000 tonnes of magnesium per year.
We'll just dredge up that fly ash and then put it in a slurry pipe and take it down to our site.
Residents say while the process sounds simple, it's short on detail, particularly around the environmental impacts of piping excess waste into Bass Strait.
They're saying that everything is totally contained, yet there will be something going down the spot line. So there are the chemical reactions, the pH changes, what does that mean?
At its first community meeting last night, Latrobe Magnesium says the construction phase of the project will employ around 50 to 100 workers from outside the region. The announcement didn't bode well with many in the room.
Through that construction case, is there no way that you can use local?
Well, it's pretty specialist. I mean, there has only been one smelter built outside China.
While some community groups have welcomed the project, others need convincing.
We'll further that some of our discussions with EPA, so won't just rely on the industry. We will, go straight to the departments and get them to be accountable to our questions.
Alexandria Dadumarkis, Win News.
The terrible impact of the Hazelwood mine fire finally revealed how smoke from the blaze did cause deaths, prompting demands for justice. Pollution from the Hazelwood mine fire has been identified as a likely cause of deaths in the Latrobe Valley. The blaze burned for 45 days, casting a smoky haze over the area. Now locals want WorkSafe to investigate the mine operator. Matt Gallant has more.
Kerry Ann blames the Hazelwood mine fire for the death of her husband of 30 years.
Well, no doubt. Absolutely no doubt. 100%. 110%. I know it was the fire. I know it was the smoke.
Craig McCormack died from a brain aneurysm in September last year.
He's just a good, fun man. Lovely man. Touched everybody who met him. Didn't deserve what he got. His life got cut short.
A report tabled to Parliament confirmed there was an increase in deaths in the Latrobe Valley and identified the blaze as a likely contributor.
For so many members of the Latrobe Valley that wanted this question answered, that felt that they were neglected and ignored, today's report must be bittersweet.
The investigation highlighted other factors, including heat waves and separate bushfires which burnt at the same time.
We called it disaster in the valley. We were ignored. We felt we were forgotten.
It also revealed the former state government and Department of Health mismanaged the recovery.
The information wasn't correct, it wasn't accessible, and it was given too late.
The mine fire burnt for 45 days.
That started off with like a cough or almost a flu. Sometimes there was headaches, there was always headaches, a metal taste in your mouth.
But Kerry Ann says the fight is ongoing and the mother of two hasn't ruled out joining a class action.
We're only just opening up the Pandora's box. This is only the opening key today. We're going to climb Mount Everest and we've got avalanches and everything ahead of us. We've got a long way to go.
Matt Gallant, 10 Eyewitness News.
An investigation into last year's Hazelwood mine fire has found it's likely the blaze contributed to an increase in deaths in the Latrobe Valley. The outbreak burned inside the mine for 45 days, shrouding Morwell and surrounding towns in smoke and ash.
In this case, the Latrobe Valley community were treated appallingly and with disastrous consequences.
It's a bit of a happy, sad day, bittersweet day for me. I can't get my husband back, obviously.
The report said there was no absolute proof the fire led to deaths.